All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Real Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.
It's 6:04. We're going to call to order. Is anybody else recording? No? So we have myself, Bill Lyons, Wilma Taxis, Sarah Ahern, and Mayor Martin here. So maybe we should start with the homelessness issue. We can always start doing that if Greg comes in, kind of suspend it and go to the other issue. Does that make sense for everyone? Yes, Sarah.
Point of order question.
Sure.
We can move around our agenda in sequence.
Yes, because we have the homelessness update here, which may or may not take a lot of time. I mean, there's been a lot happen the last couple of months. There are some very recent updates. If we start with that, and then Greg comes in, if we're in a place where we can break it, then we can stop and do the other piece. And it is first on the agenda. So one of the things I want to say about the homelessness issue or update is that I know MJ has a lot of information to give that may or may have some. For months now, well, Mo and I in June went to that conference at Holyoke Community College. I've attended the meetings at the library. There were a couple of those. I got to the tail end of the social service fair, for lack of a better phrase, on the Common. And I also attended the 4-hour town council meeting, which dealt with the homelessness. So there's, from my perspective, there has been a lot going on, and there is a lot going on to assist people, to, a lot of people were bringing food and water and things like that, and other things too, blankets and tubs and whatever. But there has been a few updates since I think the town council meeting. So if MJ would like to address those.
Sure. Earlier this afternoon, I emailed to Lorraine an update that I had prepared. I had started to prepare it last week for the city council meeting, but that wasn't necessary. So I updated it and sent it to you. It's here. I think it's been handed out.
Oh, does everybody have one?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
But essentially, it's an update on
I don't know if the mayor has one either.
yeah.
Okay.
An update on what we had presented at the August 4th meeting, where we suggested to City Council that should a deadline be set for aligning the use of the town common hours with the rest of the town lands, that we would suggest that we do the following, and that included convening a rapid rehousing team to coordinate direct service with the folks who are now encamped on the common, to create a task force to address the stopgap shelter needs for the upcoming winter season, and then to look at longer-term solutions in partnership with the Greenfield Housing Authority and their nonprofit organization, Greenfield Housing Associates. Since that time, there has been a lot of movement. I think one of the things that we found out fairly, as we were working through this issue in the summer, is the number of organizations that are involved in some aspect of service provision to the homeless. And I think one of the weaknesses, or one of the things we'd like to see work done on, and is coordinating those services so that they were more comprehensive. People who were falling through the cracks weren't falling through the cracks, and that we get a handle on what the real need, what the next step need is, so that people who are trying to move out of homelessness can have a pathway to do that. That said, we have convened the rapid rehousing team. They'll be meeting later this week. We're focusing initially on the folks who are encamped on the town commons. The second thing that you probably read in the paper is that we identified a possibility of a location for another shelter. We're working with the owner of the property, CSO, Clinical Support Options. They have experience running shelters down in the Springfield area and the Amherst area. Well, they're starting one up in the Amherst area. So we are talking with them about working to get that building in shape soon. It will not be ready next week. Our hope is that we can work things out, have it up and operational before the weather turns on us. Although somebody said that the weather turned on us on Saturday or Friday.
Yeah. Is there an option to have the health department's deadline extended in order to coordinate with something like that?
I can't answer that at the moment,
okay,
because I'm not sure.
All right.
I think that what's helpful, though, is to have a sense that camping on the common is not a long-term option.
Yes.
So I think that that's the message that we have to put out there.
I think Mary McClintock was talking about the end of October, but I would think things need to happen.
Well,
soon.
some of it will depend on how quickly we can get the shelter up and operational. There are a couple things that are in the works. We're talking to the state about getting operating funds for the organization that will be running it, and what it's really going to look like. So we'll be working through those issues in the next week or two. But I'm really pleased that we have a potential site that seems pretty good shape. Relatively, we're relatively confident that we're going to be able to have it up and running. The funding question is the big question here. So,
always, yeah.
But we're working on that. We've been, the mayor and I have been in contact with state officials about that.
Sure.
And then the third piece is to really work on more of a long-term solution. And I'm meeting with the Housing Authority and the Housing Associates on August 24th to sort of take the next steps about, once you have a shelter, you have a shelter, but what we really need to do is look at the more long-term, affordable housing options for people without many resources. So that's essentially my report tonight. You've seen a lot in the newspaper. We're continuing to work on it. Even though the City Council didn't take any action on the mayor's request to change the hours on the town common, we decided we were going to move forward and start implementing our plan regardless, because we knew that that just couldn't continue. Board of Health, their action, and we're now moving forward. Like I said, our first priority is to address the folks who are on the common. We're working with the Salvation Army, who's been doing a census and trying to really get our hands around the needs of the individuals, because every individual's need on that common is different, and we know that.
It is.
And we also want to make sure that the folks who are on the common are full partners in deciding their future.
Yes.
So.
No, that's good to know. And there really has been a lot of recent movement, which has been wonderful. And even before that, I think the community, from what I saw, really was coming together to offer support to the campers. I wouldn't say that was 100%, but I'm looking at the glass half full kind of thing, that there was enough of the community that came together and really cared about these folks and wanted to support them, which is, I think, what Greenfield is about.
I think in the long term, what we're looking at in the long range is really just the uncertainty and sort of the retrenchment on federal support for homeless services. I mean, we see ServiceNet is having second thoughts about being involved in the long-term solutions for homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a thing that I think we have to ratchet up our conversations with McGovern and, our federal representatives to say, the HUD funding is critically important.
Absolutely. Now this group that's meeting, Community Action Service Net, is that something that a member of the Human Rights Commission could attend, or is it just right now
The
for
rapid
keeping?
housing team?
Yeah, well, just, mostly to keep updated. And we may be able to get updated through memos, but.
My answer on that specifically is no, because there's confidentiality issues that
Okay.
involve with the people who are being served.
Sure. No, that's fine. I
Yeah.
just.
Yeah, and I think that since this is
Say
a
that
fair,
again? I'm sorry.
there's confidentiality issues for the folks who are.
On the
who are-
common,
Yeah,
vis-à-vis the Rapid Rehousing Task
because we're going
Force?
to be working one-on-one with their individual situations. So to figure out the service providers, we're identifying what needs to happen and then to coordinate resources in that context to help them make the next step.
Okay. So you're taking this, as I understand it, on an individualized approach?
Yes, I mean, at the
Vis-a-vis
moment,
the
for
people
the
who are on the
17
common.
folks who we've identified as living on the common, yes. I think each of them warrants individual attention in terms of what they specifically need. I mean, my understanding is we've got someone who's working full-time who's living on the common, who might need a different response than someone who has no income and has a very poor tenant history.
Are there veterans on the common, do you know?
I don't know the answer to
No.
that. I do know that
No?
the,
Okay.
There was.
Yeah, there's one veteran, he already has housing, he goes down there often.
Okay.
but my understanding is that there's a weekly meeting that does the coordinated planning for folks. The continuum of care organizing group does that, and the veteran agent is involved in that. There are additional resources available to veterans who find themselves homeless.
Right. What is that weekly meeting? Is that among the campers or among agencies?
No,
or-
it's the service providers. It's
Okay.
the case managers who are working with them to identify what new resources might be available, who might be the most appropriate to match up with that resource.
So how does this dovetail with your CSO group house idea?
You mean this?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the work that we're doing with the rapid rehousing?
Yes, and the connection between the two, if there is one. For example, I thought Lorraine's question was very good in terms of Human Rights Commission or participation in the rapid rehousing effort. I'm still struggling to understand a little bit the confidentiality provisions of that when the task force is supposedly made up of a variety of other public agencies.
Service providers.
Service
Nonprofit
providers.
service providers, yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
so that's a public issue, and it's a public issue to get these people or to assist them in the housing.
It's not a public issue. It's a private service provision issue between the people who can provide services and resources to them and the individuals.
So if it's not a public issue, what are you doing with it,
Well, just facilitating and make sure there's coordination.
between it?
Yeah, because
So-
I think that's what we've been feeling, is that there hasn't been good coordination. There are some people who are living on the common who have not, there's a coordinated entry form
Yeah.
that some people have participated in filling it out, some people have not. It's sort of the door into services.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not being critical here. I'm very, very pleased that the city is taking a coordinating role in this. Is that what you call it? Great.
I would call it, yes, a coordinating
Okay.
role, to make sure that there's forward movement and that when things get stuck, we find a way to get them unstuck.
Yeah, that's great progress, in my opinion. The only thing I want to know is how does that relate to what you're trying to do on High Street? I'm a little unclear.
High Street will become a resource if and when it becomes available. And so the folks who are working on the rapid rehousing, it's not going to be available
By the
right away.
20th.
It's not by the 20th, maybe
Right.
not by the 1st of September, not even by the middle of September.
Right, but would it be fair to say that the city is taking the lead on that project?
The city is participating as a partner in seeing that come to be. I would not say the lead.
Well, I have to say, I'm really very happy that things have moved along so well. I mean, we started discussing homelessness after this winter when we had all that, you know, the cold weather, and it really, it sort of is like a wheel, you know, there's so many different parts to it, and with each season it changes. And I'm glad that they're having the, respecting the confidentiality of people. I think it's hard to do that when they're out in the public all day long and they're there. So I think that really will help them knowing that their confidentiality is in their private issues are private on paper, which is wonderful. But I'm really, I was very happy to see the progress that the mayor's office took and the town hall, because it's just very necessary. We really, it seemed like for a while we were sort of just discussing, and all of a sudden it's like one of those things that it just catches and it goes, which is wonderful. I think it's great.
Sure, and I'll share with you, I mean, when I started stepping in and started to, you know, I work with human resources in this area, or with social services in this area. What I was finding is that there was, you know, it was hard to get information about who does what in this environment.
Right.
And if I was having that difficulty, imagine the difficulty that other people were having. And so there really needs to be someone who's sort of keeping things coordinated.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Helping the social service organizations work well together. And when there's something that's not working, having someone who can help facilitate a solution to that.
Sure.
So I think that's an appropriate role for the town to be playing.
Sure.
You know, I do not want to be doing one-on-one direct service provision
no.
to help people find homes out the common.
No,
you know.
but if the model is a wheel, you're sort of the center of it, and everything else kind of spokes out from that, and they'll go through you right now, a coordinator.
Well, I'm hoping that once we get this up and running, first of all, though, the one thing I was going to ask your committee to do is that one of the things we discovered as we were researching this is that the Continuum of Care, which is an organization that serves Hampshire, Franklin, and Berkshire County, the leader of that had suggested to me that Franklin County wasn't well represented in that environment, and that we might try to find somebody who might step in and advocate for resources for our area.
Okay.
So I would love to find someone to do that.
I think any one of us could do that, or more than one of us, and take turns or whatever.
Because if you're not at the table, I say if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu, and I think that might have happened to us a little.
Yes.
Is the press here? Oh, they're not going to quote me on that. But I do think that having someone with someone in the community connected with a committee like yours, sort of tied into that a little better would be a very good thing, especially since we hear that there's changes happening. There might be a change in service providers. It's good to be aware of that and to get that information back to the community.
And that's the name of the organization, Continuum?
It's the Continuum of Care, and it's run out of the Hilltown Community Development Corporation right now. Now, the other thing that might be in the works is that the Hilltown CDC might be giving up running it because of insufficient funds, and this is where I think it's important to really talk to our representatives and senators about making sure there's adequate resources so that organizations can run these things.
I think they spoke about that at the conference that Mo and I went to. I do remember that. It was the COC that kept calling it.
Yeah. Express what you're saying to us.
Yes.
And then the other piece is that with the meetings that have been happening at the library, there was some discussion about an ongoing community task force to sort of stay on it. And I think that that would be a very valuable thing.
Sure.
Clearly that group that was working at the library was working on some very specific, the very specific issue about camping on the common.
Right.
But there was a call for an ongoing committee that would sort of stay on top of it. I know that the Interfaith Council has a homeless task force of some sort. We know another resident in the town has pulled together a bunch of people who are interested in sort of being on a committee for that. So I think that that would be a valuable thing to create a local task force or committee on making sure that we're continuing to address the homeless issue, that it doesn't fall off the radar when this shelter gets.
And Mary McClintock has email addresses of everybody who was at the meeting. So I know she's been away on vacation, but I had been receiving emails from her in that mass mail.
Yeah.
So, yes, Lou.
MJ, we have had this discussion before, I think, in May or June, or at least I asked you a series of questions. One of the reasons I'm thrilled to see that the city is taking a coordinating role. Is this Hilltown Cooperative was something that you, as part of the mayoral task force that was assigned between you and the fire chief to respond to our citywide freeze plan resolution, had recommended, or we discussed about. That's a fine idea, and I think we should do that. My concern is that, as far as homelessness in the community is concerned, this commission has been on it almost monthly since November, December of last year. I think it's fair to say there's a consensus of this commission that sees it as a crisis in the community. I respectfully disagree from Lorraine's position that this issue caught and suddenly exploded into everyone's consciousness 1 month or 1 week. I think there's a reason that it did. Okay. Be that as it may, I think now most people, the leadership in the community sees this as something that is a crisis. Whether it comes from the service community or the private community or a combination of all the above, it's something that all of us should deal with. Like I said, the coordination role is critical. I would hope that it is something that could be long-term, if not permanent, because I think the only way we're going to deal with this effectively is for the city to help deal with it effectively. Okay. But there are so many issues regarding homelessness everywhere, but we're just concerned because we have to be here that we don't have that kind of time to be either lobbying or, I guess, in going to meetings with the Hilltown Cooperative. What we are looking at is the winter. And we're looking at people who we know are out there and who we have to deal with or should deal with as a community for the winter. You know, that's sort of what I'm looking for. Personally, rapid rehousing is a great idea, but it's an idea that policy-wise is a response to a crisis, and a good response when you can bring everyone together. But when that passes, as it will, in a week or a month, and the leaves start to turn and the snow starts to fly.
So is your question about what are we going to do about this winter?
Yeah.
Well, I think that the immediate answer to that is that if we're successful, we've actually effectively doubled shelter beds in Greenfield. And hopefully, I mean, I think this has created a community awareness. I think we're looking at how can people step out of shelter into affordable housing. And that means, you know, rooms, SROs, small apartments. And part of what we're doing now is really trying to identify those resources in a more organized way so that people who want to step out of those, who have the ability to step out of shelter, have some supports that help them be successful in that. And hopefully when we do that, you heard me before, I'm not a big fan of creating new shelters, and specifically not having the town run one, because I think it's just out of our wheelhouse. Unless there's, you know, a real like pressing dire emergency and boom, you know, fire, flood, those type of things that come on us suddenly. The cold weather piece, I think that the goal is to get people who need to be sheltered into shelter before that cold weather hits. So that's what I'm hoping is that with the process that we're setting up, the folks who might be in shelter now might actually find some opportunities to move into their next stage of housing by resources that we're able to identify. Those shelter beds open up, but we're also adding the number of shelter beds before the winter.
Okay, thanks.
I think I just want to mention something to Lou. I don't know if you really understood what I was saying or if I wasn't clear enough. But what I'm saying is when things caught on was that the resolution of this issue seemed to really pick up speed a few weeks ago. And I know we've been talking about it, the community have been talking about it, but all of a sudden it seems as though the resolutions were starting to happen. That's what I meant. I don't know if that was what you understood that I meant.
Yes.
But it's okay.
It is, and my point
Okay.
is, why do you think that happened? Why do you think things started speeding up and being resolved?
Well, because well, what I've read in the paper, which I believe to be true, and this issue, and for not only this that was presented to us tonight, but the town meetings that I went to, the town council meeting that I sat through, and the actions that I've read from the mayor's office in the newspaper, which I believe to be true. And those things were not happening a month ago or 6 weeks ago. So that's what I meant, that there's more activity around solutions to this than before.
And that's great.
Yeah.
My question is the same. I understood what you said.
Oh, okay.
My
Right.
question is, why do you think that happened? And I think it's because there's tents on the town common and there was 20 people there. I mean, it's fairly obvious. This isn't a big secret. And I think that I wish that hadn't happened. And I think everyone feels the same way, but it did. And now there's some response to that, which is extraordinarily positive.
Yes.
Okay. But let's not, I mean, we've been sitting here now for 6 or 7 months working on homelessness.
Yes, we have.
And we're seeing now some positive action that I think we all agree should be encouraging.
Absolutely.
But what MJ said about a crisis, the city responding to a crisis, she may be referring to a flood or a fire or something. When I looked at the town common, as an individual, that's the crisis I saw. And I think it's an appropriate response that the city is making.
It is, and you know, for me, we absolutely have been working on the homelessness for a while. And part of the process with any issue like that is first to gather information, first to try to understand the problem. And then when it's more understood, then the solutions come about. And I think that's at the place we're in now, because there's been a lot of information gathering. I know on my part there has been, and Mo and others too, that we've just been, you know, trying to sort out what really is the problem. And how can we be resourceful and helpful and useful in that. So that's what I've seen myself doing anyway, gathering a lot of information. And not only just going to these meetings, but doing a lot of research online, seeing what other communities are doing. So that's where I'm at with that. I don't think either one of us are wrong. I think that we're both, you know, have something to offer to the solution. But I just want to clarify that that's kind of where I'm at. Sometimes I skip a few lines or something to not completely, you know, explain something. So Sarah, you said you had something.
Yeah, I have a couple of things.
Okay.
That kind of respond to Lou's comments. For me, I think that the reason why this issue is in the forefront of everybody's vision right now is because the individuals have moved from the shadows, because we've had a homelessness population for a long time here in Greenfield. They were just hidden. So they weren't seen, they weren't right in the middle of town where everybody could see them with tents. And I always try to remember, these are individual human beings. That if it's hard for you to look at the tents on the common, just imagine how it's for these folks, that their daily lives are basically like on full display all day long, all night long. Anything bad happens on the common, it's those people. Not one person was not abiding by town laws and that individual was, you know, bent with whatever needed to happen. It's a whole people are being labeled. I think that the town's approach to this is really good, but I'm still not hearing immediate emergency action. If this is truly a crisis of, you know, I think whether there's 15 tents on the common now, I'm still not hearing what the immediate solution, you know, and I do realize, because I've visited the common often, I speak to the individuals that are camping there, because I think it's important to hear their voices. You know, we have a saying, nothing for us without us, and I think that applies to the individuals on common as well. And they all have different pathways to where they wound up. Some lost their jobs, some had a fire. Many of them do work, you know, so I'm reading through this, and I'm saying, you know, Harmon personnel, I think Harmon personnel is awesome. You know, I've taken a temp job with, you know, through Harmon. They really work with folks that may not have a good employment history or may have, in recovery, you know, they work individually in recovery. But the facts matter that, you know, the recent national data that came out was a minimum wage job does not pay for a one-bedroom apartment. That's reality. So even if these individuals got gainful employment, they still have to shower somewhere, they still have to be presentable for employment. So I'm just thinking of immediate. I like the long-term solutions that have come forth. I like the idea of using the old respite house. I mean, that's a good solution, but I'm not seeing an immediate, because it's a systemic failure of our society. It's not just one thing, it's a systemic failure. There's, you know, in the 90s when the middle class kind of disappeared, us people who worked became the working poor. We had no benefits, we had nothing. So in essence, that's what these folks are facing, is get a job, still have a place to live, and can't afford a place to live. So I'm wondering where the single room occupancy and how quickly we can find these places that don't exist here, or there's not as many as are needed. So that's my concern is. And then the second thing was, you know, I read the Board of Health's decision about the August 20th deadline, and I did my own research, because again, facts matter, and I needed a clear definition of what a mobile housing unit was. And the answer I got was, a tent does not qualify as a mobile housing unit. It has to be attached to something concrete. And I did not get the direct line in a regulation, and this was by the, not the ordinance, but the sanitation department state level, who actually created these regulations. A tent does not quantify, camping does not quantify as a mobile housing unit. So I'm thinking maybe there's a little room to play around with that deadline and figure out what we really can do. Because if they're using that as a order to cease and desist, then the cease and desist order is nullified, because it doesn't, the definition that they're going on is not the definition the actual people who created the regulations are going by. So I would like for some clarity on that, and maybe the folks in your office can work on finding that clarification.
We can do it tonight.
Playing phone tag with that department, so they're supposed to be sending me an email with the exact regulation so that I can pass it along, because, you know, it does matter. And to force these folks off the common on the 20th with nowhere to go, you know, because we don't have an immediate solution to where we're at, you know, from August 20th, the folks are, where are they going to go? They're going to go back into the woods where they were?
So first let me say I don't subscribe to your opinion that the homeless are only noticed because they're on the town common. So we know for a fact that there have been a number of incidents over the past decade or so of tents and homeless people either trespassing or on town or state land or in somebody else's house without their permission. So we know that's happened. And we also know that homelessness has been around for a long time. So we're talking about Greenfield, and we're only talking about the common, we're talking about solutions for homelessness locally. We can't talk about national immigration issues and refugee camps and the problem with homelessness, minimum wage, job security, jobs coming up. That's not our purview. That might be an opportunity for someone to get out and wear a flag or wear a poster and complain about the way society is today. So we can only work on the problem we have without a housing department, without any funds, without any line item. So we're accommodating and facilitating a group thing to take care of the people on the common. And I call them people because they're all people, and we deal with them individually. The great housing guru, I'm calling him, is Captain Scott Peabody. He's done a wonderful job. He's got a total of 455 people signed up over the past 2.5 years or so, and that's the maximum number of people that have been seeking food, shelter, clothing, a number of other items. So that's what we're dealing with over a period of time. So I don't think they're hidden. I think they come out and utilize the services that are abounding in Greenfield with the service agencies, the programs, the meals, and so on. Our main focus is to help the ones on the common right now and to set up, hopefully, with, and MJ's been in housing a long time. I've been in housing for decades. These are good people, she and I, working with good people trying to do what they can over a period of years with the programs. So we will take care of the local, quick emergency housing, and the second phase is to develop some type of long-range permanent housing. But we can't pay somebody to meet the rent, to meet the idea of having a place to live and a job and go live happily ever after. All we can do is provide the opportunity. And that's where I think the rubber might meet the road, is that these are different choices that you have. How would you like to do it? You can only provide what you need after we assess what you need from your information. And again, Captain Peabody is doing a great job. Your reference to the Board of Health is that that law is actually temporary housing. It's not mobile housing. So temporary housing has to do with, and it specifically says temp. So there is only temporary and permanent. Permanent housing has its own definition. That's where it's a fixed, and temporary is not. A fixed is not a clamp. But because temporary housing specifically says temps, that's the issue with the cease and desist with the Board of Health. It's done in other communities in Massachusetts. It's the same law. It's not any make-believe law. It's a real law. It's written. And the Board of Health would have the combination of actually the CMR on that. And we have one in the office.
Sarah?
First off, when I was talking about hidden, I was talking about the general public optics, not my personal belief that they've been hidden, because I said that in my comments that they haven't actually been, they've been in our community for as long as I've been here, and beyond my birth. I think that the things that I mentioned, they do affect us locally. Our job data is not good, our economic data isn't good, so it's local. It's not somebody waving a flag. These are real problems that our individuals are facing in this community. Not nationally, but I use national data because part of that national data is Franklin County, Massachusetts. So what I referenced was things that affect individuals, like jobs that don't pay a living wage, apartments that are unaffordable with jobs that don't pay a living wage. That's a real impact in this community. So it's not, you know, someone could easily go and stand up and hold a sign, but this is reality based on real-time conversations with real people in this community.
So we are enjoying, as most communities are, a very low unemployment rate. So our unemployment rate is less than 4%. It wasn't so long ago, less than probably a decade, where 5% unemployment was considered full employment. And now the economists have changed that to getting closer to 100%. So we have a very low unemployment rate. So that creates a problem for jobs. But it should also create a supply and demand for an increase in wages. So I think we're beginning to see that with the combination of minimum wage discussion in laws and the fact that corporations and businesses are paying more for people, more wages, higher wages, so that they can get people to work with them. Well, I think it's a good economy is good for all, but it's got to be good for more housing. So if we had more housing, the rents might come down. You know, if we deal with the supply and demand side, if we had more jobs, would the wages go down, or would they go up, and depending on the type of jobs? So I think we only have 10 fingers, we can only do so much.
I think that all the things that we're talking about and working on are working towards a solution. And they're all different pieces of the problem. And I think we know what the problem is, and I think that we're still all aware of that, but we're working towards the solution now also. And I think being aware of those problems may help it to not be repeated. But I also think that we're just, you know, it's all a foundation for coming to a solution. The goal is the solution of having people.
And we received an urban grant. MJ and Mark are working on that with community action, so I think that's going to help out. We can certainly bring this in to that with the job connection. I've been asked to step back a little bit with my idea with I want to go to employers who will have a job with the bed, and then if you have the bed, you have that job.
Sure.
I'm not asking you to step back. I'm asking you to work through the existing system.
Right, so we got to work a different way. So there are a lot of good discussion points, and people are coming up with different ideas. Everyone's, I think, as Lorraine says, I think going in the same direction. Hopefully we can help them in the
Let me ask a question, if I could, Mayor. Just, and I don't mean to put you on the spot with this if you don't know, because I don't think any of us know, but as far as Greenfield is concerned, I have been struggling for months to try to get a handle on the scope of the homeless problem in this community, and maybe in the county. And I'm not sure I've succeeded to my satisfaction yet. We had the executive director of community action here several months ago, as we were talking about homelessness. And I asked her at that time we thought the minimum wage issue was going to be on the ballot in November solely, you know, just straight up. So I told her with a $15 minimum wage, would a person in this community or this area be able to afford an apartment? And she said no. So I think that's a good starting wage for our area. But if you know, that really puts us behind the 8 ball if it's true, because if we can't, if that person can't afford either a 1-bedroom apartment or something like that, given our housing stock, I think that puts us at another step. That time may not have come yet. But how would you characterize the nature of the homeless problem in the area? Above and beyond what's happening at the town common, do you think it's larger? Do you think it has the potential to be larger? I'm just curious if you know anything we don't.
No, my impression, I'd like to give my impression. My impression is that because of the centralized services that we provide for the county on a regional basis, that there are need for people who are using those services to be closer to them. So that brings them into town. When we provide supportive housing, assisted housing, our percentages is, I say 16% and 16%, where other towns are 0.5 or 1% or 3%. So if there was a regional sharing of that, then there would be available and affordable housing in other towns. So we provide for both higher-end housing in a number of areas, as evidenced by some developments that are coming to conclusion, and as well as apartment dwelling, which is, has a range of cost. Our demand now for housing is in the 1-bedroom to single occupancy. So, I know you've read the history of the area. We've always been a railroad town too. Right. So years ago, we used to have boarding houses and rooming houses because a lot of the people working on the railroad were coming here between here and Schenectady, rather Mechanicville and Billerica. So this was kind of a triple run here out of Deerfield. And we had all this transient housing that met the need. So my suggestion is that there are on the website, when you go to the DHCD homeless website, you'll see emergency rehousing program. You'll see housing with services and support services. You'll see federal agencies grouping together, HHS and VA, grouping together to create supportive housing with meals, laundry, linen, and housekeeping. So I'm saying those are the types of things we should do on a permanent basis, so it's always fixed, and people will come and go, and then we'll have that option. We need more hotels. We used to have hotels downtown. We just lost a hotel. Well, we got one coming in, but that won't happen until next year. Just creating choices, housing choices. Will bring job choices. Will help people get into their own place. And I think housing is critical because it's the place where we put our mind. Everyone has the house. That's your safe place. That's where you go to relax, re-energize, get things together, get rid of the chaos. If you don't have that, then it creates continuous chaos. And we all know that's stressful and can cause impaired thought and poor decisions.
Thank you.
Just a couple of things to speak to the issue that Mayor Martin brought up. In our attendance at the symposium at Holyoke Community College, they talked about, and you probably can speak to this, MJ, the revamping of that rating system for people that come for homes. And they're very attracted to the Greenfield area because of the services we offer. So there you'll find much housing up in the Berkshire area where we don't have it because people want to come and be part of our community. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting, some of the things that they were rescoring upon intake with the clients that they were coming to. So a lot of things are happening on all levels and many levels, but we seem to be the prime choice because of the services we have. It was an interesting concept.
So basically there are openings in other parts of the state, but people want to be here because this is what they consider home, and the services, as Mo said, the services are here. So they're very reluctant to move into a new area with not knowing anyone, and I understand that. Mm-hmm. And I think if we get the homeless people back on their feet, you know, I guess my thought is that they will be committed to the community, because it will be the community who has helped them get to that point, and they'll be committed, and they'll be here, and they'll be, I mean, they are right now functioning citizens, but they'll be maybe more invested in the community also.
Well, I think our goal is to help them be in a place where they're making choices and acting reasonably on that, be it here in Greenfield or should they choose to go elsewhere, but that while they're here, that there's an environment that's supportive of them making progress for themselves. So.
And I think that's what, you know, we're all looking at. It's looking at something positive and moving forward, and it's still understanding, as you know, Sarah was talking about, you know, understanding the problem and just going from there with it, keep moving forward.
Another question.
Yes.
Is there ever any discussion with HUD in Section 8? And I mean, I'm sure you're aware of how much of a nightmare that is, the waiting list. I've been on the list myself for 3 years and waiting. Yeah. Has there been any conversations had with opening up the waiting list? I'm not sure it was even open again, but I know it opens at various points. But is there any kind of like push to kind of open it?
I've been asking the Housing Authority to really take a look at the resources that might be untapped or not fully utilized. And they've been starting to look at that. You know, we've had some questions about whether or not their subsidies are fully utilized. We're still following up on that. We have asked, and the Housing Authority is meeting to talk about creating some priority for homeless, for entry into the Winslow. But in terms of the federal resources that have been there, they have been a continuing challenge to get access to. If you have them, good for you. If you don't have one yet, you know, stand in line. I think that we are all, I can't speak for everyone. I am cautious about having any high expectations of additional assistance from Washington.
And then 50 years ago, when I was involved in the Vietnam veteran movement, the veterans were 35% of the homeless population. And although there's been an improvement to today, there's still a veteran homeless population of 9%. It can't be the same veterans, although probably there's a percentage that are the same. But we weren't able to interdict that flow into the homeless population from the military. So it's very it's a real, real tough problem to address. The National Coalition for the Homeless has been, we were there when they started, and we helped them. You probably remember the early 80s, and it was a difficult time to keep them afloat when their only dedication was to the homeless. But now they're a strong organization, and they continue to work on it. We have homeless grants, we have all types of homeless programs. I don't mean to choose any nonprofit for not completing or not succeeding. It's a matter of if you're doing the same thing and you're still not getting it done, and tweak it a little bit or try something different. And I'm big on housing choices because people have individual choices. They're all different. You have 2 children, you're by yourself, you have, whatever it is, where you need support services. We've got to have those choices available in the community.
Well, I think this has been a very productive and useful discussion and session to get an update, and for also, the mayor and MJ also to hear what our concerns have been also, and I think it's been very good. I appreciate you coming and updating us.
Thanks very much.
We'll keep you posted.
Please, yes.
I won't come to every meeting here.
Good.
I have a sense I'll bring some regular updates to the public over the next couple months.
Sure.
So I'll make sure that you're included.
Thank you.
Yes, all right, thank you. So we still don't have the quorum. Oh, voting quorum.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
We need 5 votes.
We do, we have 9, we're supposed to have 9 people, but we have 3 openings.
So obviously we're not going to be able to do anything regarding the open meeting issue. Because even a vote to go into executive session, I think you're going to need that.
Yeah, we can't, unless,
you can't.
unless Greg comes in at 7. But he didn't, I understood him that he was going to be here. He didn't say he wasn't, or that he might be late or anything like that.
Can I ask you a question on this?
Sure.
Did you get a continuance to tonight, to this date, or is there a general continuance going on?
Oh, not general. I have, we have a continuance until August 22nd.
Okay.
So we as the, but we also have to post it 48 hours ahead of time and notify everybody, or a lot of people, and invite people. So we need that, that time frame. I don't know if they would offer another extension.
Yeah. That was my next question.
Yeah, I think we have an unusual situation where we have, one member still away on vacation, and we have so few members. We need to...
and that quorum still applies even though there's not a full body of 9 at this point?
We need
still
5.
5?
Yeah, we need 5, for sure.
It's also the summer. I can see other boards and commissions in the Commonwealth having this issue.
Sure.
I think, what is your impression? Have you spoken to anyone? Are they open to us asking for another continuance, so to speak, till maybe September?
I have not asked for another I asked for the first one until the 22nd, and I asked for until then in case we couldn't meet tonight, couldn't resolve the issue tonight, that would give us a little bit of time, certainly not a whole lot. I know that Greg is available on Tuesday evenings. Tuesday he's always available. I have more availability also. So maybe we can fit it in before the 22nd or on the 22nd. I suppose, actually trying to schedule this meeting, it's almost been like a full-time job.
I'm sure.
It's like scheduling everybody,
Sure.
and can you be, oh no, we can't be
This
there.
really places you in a difficult position. I'm sorry for that.
But you know what, I'm not glad about the complaint, but I'm glad that we're working on it, because I'm learning something new, and it just, there's a lot of positive things about it. So anyway.
Do you need an executive session for the complaint?
We need to vote to go into executive
You can
session.
vote not to go into the
Or not
executive
to.
session, but you still need 5 votes.
So can you Oh, you need 5 votes.
You know, 5
We
votes
need
to
5
vote either
votes.
way.
We only have 4. So the 22nd is
was thinking
next,
that myself.
a week from Wednesday.
Still need the 5.
If Greg can meet Tuesday, the 21st, that would get us under the wire. We can meet on the weekend if people were available, as long as, as long as the notice was there and everything else. So my guess is that Rod is either back or coming back very soon, because he said the middle of the month. I thought he would be here for tonight.
Yeah, this coming weekend, I'm out of town.
All right.
I prefer a firm commitment from Greg, like tonight, unless he just emailed you an hour or so ago, I just don't, it's very unlike Greg to do.
It is.
It
He
is.
may
So,
have got caught up at work
I
or
don't know.
something.
But if he can tell you the dates that he's firm, could make a meeting,
Mhm.
then I think it's easier for, at least for me, maybe the rest of us, to respond to it and tell you how we can do that.
And if he was available tomorrow night, it's too early, because
Right.
we have to post it. But the earliest we would be able to do it is the 21st then. I will, is everybody else available on the 21st? Mo, are you available?
I have a meeting on that night, but I, depending on the time, I might be able to do 2 meetings.
We can change the time, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
at 6. I mean, we can work around that.
Okay, so
Because you're not available the
Tentatively,
following
yes.
week. All right, well, would a different time work better for you than 6?
it would probably have to be earlier, because I have a meeting at 5
At 5.
that I
okay.
think is going to stretch. It's in town, but it's going to stretch on for at least 2 hours. We have a lot of business to do, so.
So you would probably be available early in the afternoon.
Yeah, mid-afternoon, early afternoon. I don't see this, unless I'm wrong, I don't see this, our issue, taking more than an hour. Unless you do, unless people know something I don't.
I think we can talk about it and resolve it.
Okay.
Because we're all aware of it for so long, and I'm sure we've been playing through our mind something about it, just trying to sort things out. So, all right, so we're going to try to do it the 21st at 3. Lou?
If that works for everyone.
It does for me.
Okay.
Will it work for the mayor?
Tuesday, 21st at 3 p.m.?
Sure.
I'll be in touch with Greg, and then we can let everybody know when it is. I'll have to post it next couple of days, really.
114 Main Street?
Yes, right here. I'll have to.
What time, 3 you said?
At 3, yeah, I'll have to make sure we can get the room. Otherwise, we may have to meet somewhere else. Oh, there's actually 2 rooms, there's one back there, too. What are we, human rights? Okay.
Front row in the back?
Yeah. So we can't vote on it because we don't have a quorum, but do you have any thoughts or suggestions, Mr. Mayor, about other people who may be interested in the Human Rights Commission?
No, I checked the folder, we just went through the appointments and reappointments.
Yeah.
So, but I'll check and see if anything's come in or if we bypassed anyone in that list.
Do you know Oscar Arce? He's been very involved in a lot of democratic stuff in town. I've tried to convince him to.
Oscar?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I've tried to convince him to be on there. Maybe if you know him, you might make him a little notice. He did come to one of our meetings and was very much interested in it. Maybe he got
I spoke
distracted.
with Oscar about that, because I thought it was also a really good idea.
Oh, yeah?
He's still on a commission from, I guess, his prior employment. So he wanted to wait until that kind of finishes up, because he didn't want to overcommit himself.
Mhm.
But he's interested, but he has to wait for that, and I don't know what that time
Well,
frame is.
maybe you could
but-
just apply and get that
Yeah.
process going. You're talking about Oscar Arce,
Yes,
right? Not the
yeah.
Oscar at the
Yeah.
TV station.
Or
I think
maybe
he
we
would be
scared
very
him
good.
away.
Yeah.
That's possible. It's happened before, you know.
I think he would be excellent on the commission, for sure, as we all are, as we all are. And the mayor is too, so he's been a good addition to tonight.
Yeah, great discussion.
Thanks
For coming.
I thought I kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, well,
No, no. All right, I'll move to adjourn.
second?
Well, did we have any other business? I think the other thing was the meeting, but okay, we have a motion to adjourn and a second. Do we have any other discussion?
All of our productions at GCTV are sponsored in part by Bay State Health, providing the care you and your family need when you need it, close to home. Visit them online at baystatehealth.org. Greenfield Savings Bank. Visit them at 400 Main Street in Greenfield. Call them at 774-3191 or go online to greenfieldsavings.com. Greenfield Community College, providing access and excellence in higher education in the Pioneer Valley. Visit them at gcc.mass.edu. The Hammond Family. The Hammond family are longtime supporters of Greenfield Community Television. New Fortune Chinese Restaurant on the Mohawk Trail in Greenfield. Visit them online at newfortunema.com. Call them at 772-0838 and check them out on Facebook. Real Cleaning Services, cleaning Hampshire and Franklin County since 1972. We don't cut corners, we clean them. Check them out online at realclean.com. Call them at 413-422-1143. People's United Bank, located at 45 Federal Street in Greenfield. You can call them at 774-3713 or visit them online at peoples.com. The Solar Store of Greenfield, replacing fossil fuels and nuclear power one home at a time. Visit them at 23 Fisk Ave. Call them at 413-772-3122 or visit them online at solarstoreofgreenfield.com. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting all of GCTV's productions.